You're in the sweet spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. You're in the sweet spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. Baby, you're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world.
Welcome to the Sweet Spot Podcast. My name is Lynn, your host, and Ken's my co-host. Ken, how's it going?
Oh, Lynn, it is going. I am looking forward to this episode. I think it's going to be a great one, and I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me back.
Oh, yeah, I thought I'd have you back. Well, this is episode 327.
Oh, my goodness, 327. How do you just keep cranking these things out, don't you? Oh, my gosh, I don't know. Oh, thanks to your hard work, Lynn. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So, Ken and I are both former Disneyland Custodial cast members, and we host the #1 Disneyland podcast hosted by two former Disneyland Custodial cast members.
Number one.
We are also authors of the books Cleaning the Kingdom. We have 2 volumes out. I mention this every episode, so I don't need to go into it, but you can get on Amazon. You can get signed copies on our website, signed by both of us, and I will mail those out personally to you. You can buy one or you can buy both at a good deal. You get the audiobook for our first book at Audible and where you find audiobooks, and we're working on the second book currently. I want to mention our Patreon that we do. Our last episode, we actually had it worked out where we had our Patreons that gave $5 or more per month were able to join us in a chat during the recording of our current events that we later put into our show, which everyone gets to hear, but by doing this, you get a chance to interact. So if there's like a story that Ken brings up and you have a comment or you want to discuss something, we will probably read, if it's relevant, we will read that comment and maybe have a short interaction with you. It's kind of hard sometimes, I noticed, because of the timing. So we try to leave a little time to kind of work it all out in between stories so we can get those comments in. But it seemed like the people that joined us last time had a really good time. I heard some good compliments about it. So if you'd like to join in, we're going to do our next one in 2 weeks on, what is that? Friday the, I'm not prepared for that. Friday the 18th, we will be doing another live stream, and I will send out a reminder. If you become a patron, you will get an email that will remind you with a link on how to join us. It's like through YouTube, but it's by invite only.
That's February 18th,
yes.
2022.
Right, 2022, yeah. Not 23. Or 21. So we will be doing that. So if you want to join, go to Patreon, search The Sweet Spot, or go to our website, thesweetspot.com, and look for the Patreon link there and sign up today to be a part of that. Plus, you, by joining Patreon, you also get, in addition to that, one bonus episode that we record per month for that. All right. Also wanted to mention I had the opportunity to go to Disneyland for a short trip last week ago today, actually, as we're recording this. It was a very quick trip, but I wanted to go down and experience a few things and bring it back to you guys. So I'll just go over real quick some of the things I did. Got to hang out with a friend that I used to work with at Disneyland. That was a lot of fun. And got to go on Pirates twice, Mark Twain, Haunted Mansion, Millennium Falcon, Snow White, Indy, Jungle Cruise, Star Tours, Buzz Lightyear, I ate for the first time at Docking Bay 7, is that right? Docking Bay. In Galaxy's Edge. I had never eaten there, but I heard good things about it. And I had some kind of a chicken thing. It came with mashed potatoes and some vegetables, and I was very surprised how good it was. Very good, filling, and somewhat healthy. So, over like some of the other food that you can get there. So, check that out if you get a chance. Then I went to, I wanted to find, for dinner, I wanted to find some chicken strips. I had a really hard time. I went over to, Stafer Cafe, and they were out. So I said, okay. So I went to Hungry Bear Restaurant and thought I'll just get, they have these veggie burgers there that I like. So I ordered that. I ordered this watermelon drink that they have there. It's like a little slushy thing. And I did it on the mobile app, but then by the time I got up to the counter, they said, oh, we're out of that. Would you like a soda? And I said, all right. So, I mean, the soda's less money than so I just thought, whatever. So I got that, and I got the veggie burger. Not very good with the veggie burger. The bun was very hard, so I was kind of disappointed in that whole ordeal. But I did that, and then I have a couple of things I noticed in the park, and it's not. I hate to complain, but at the same time, we got to be honest and talk about some of the things that we feel need some work. And Pirates, I think, believes needs some work. And some of you that have gone to the park more recently probably noticed some of these things. There's a lot of animatronics just not working. The lighting in the last scene where the fire, there's a couple animatronics. The lights aren't even on their face. It's just dark. It's just a lot of little things like that I noticed. And I'm not nitpicking. These are things that even a guest that maybe didn't know the ride very well would notice. And they were that way. It wasn't just like it was that way when I went on it one time. It was like that way all day because I went on daytime and then later in the evening. But something that is working that wasn't for a long time was, Ken, the bamboo that's in the Indy line and you shake it and it makes a bunch of noise?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't working for a long time. You used to shake it, it would just be real flimsy and it wouldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Well, then, more recently, you would shake it and it would make the noise, the rumbling, but nothing else would happen. Well, guess what? You do it now, rumbling and the ceiling comes down again. So, very pleased.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that it actually impales the guests.
Well, almost.
Oh, okay.
No, I was very impressed with that. Another thing I did was I tried Genie Plus. I think it's good if you plan on going on those attractions and it's a busy enough day, because I did notice that the lines that like Thunder, Space Mountain, those lines are a lot longer now. And if you don't have Genie Plus, you're going to be waiting an hour. Even for Thunder, you'll easily be waiting 45 minutes. So I think it's good for that. So I wouldn't jump and buy it right away. Fill out the park and see, do I really need this today? That would be my advice. But other than that, it seemed like it was good. It seemed like it was just a kind of like the Max Pass, except you can only use it one time per attraction. So if you plan on wanting to do something twice, you can only use the Genie Plus once for that. Overall, it was a nice day. Had a good time. Ran into a listener, Darcy, and had a nice conversation with her, and had a lot of fun. So always fun to run into people like that. So thank you, Darcy. That was cool. And let's see. I think that was it for that trip. But it was a really quick one. I drove down, went in the park on the same day, came back the next day. So just wanted to experience these things. Had a magic key and wanted to use it for the first time. Oh, real funny story with that real quick. So I went to get into the park, use my Magic Key for the first time, they scan your phone. You don't have like a pass anymore, but it's like on your phone. They scan my phone, and the lady said, "Uh-oh," and I go, "What?" I look over at the screen. It said Woodrow, it said my name, but it was not my picture. It was my son. So she says, "That's not you." So I said, "No, that's my son." So I think that because I upgraded my ticket from last time, I think that when they took our pictures, they got the tickets mixed up or something. So when I upgraded, I actually upgraded his pass and not my pass. But they had to go get a lead, all this stuff. But they retook my picture. So anyways, good times.
So you're telling us that you have usurped your son's privileges.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's a good trip report. Thank you for sharing that with the audience.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you probably bumped into many, many more of our listeners. You just didn't know it because we've got so many listeners everywhere. You bump into them wherever you go.
Well, a lot of people don't know. I mean, because we're podcasters, they don't really know our faces. So, which is a good thing.
We've got the perfect faces for podcasting. It's great.
Right.
Hey, folks, this is not the entire show. We have got a whole show. This is just the intro. We've got a whole show ahead. Lynn, who is our guest for this episode?
We have one of our most popular guests on our show, someone that comes on our show several times a year, and that is Disney historian and author Jim Korkis. So if you're not familiar with Jim Korkis and you're new to this show, Jim has written dozens of books on Disney history, Disneyland, Disney World, Disney films, characters. So he has a plethora of books, and wonderful books, I should say. And also, he is also a former cast member. He actually worked at Disney World, and still does some stuff for freelancing stuff. So he's just a great guest to have, very informative, and we're really excited to have him back on the show, and I'm looking forward to it.
His books should be in your library right next to ours. So,
yeah,
you need to get our books, but you also need to get Jim's books.
Well, great. Let's get started with the show then. Let's move on to the current events. Now we're going to have the current events. Ken, do you have anything for us?
Happy New Year again.
Again.
Yes, we are in the midst of Lunar New Year as we're recording this. And as MiceChat.com reported, Samantha Davis Friedman had a write-up called Disney California Adventure Lunar New Year, Raya, Food, and Tigger too. And as she says, one of my favorite things about Disney California Adventure Park is its evolution from primarily representing iconic geographical features of the Golden State, like its redwood forests and beachfront piers, to also showcasing California's diverse population through annual festivals. Among these multicultural events is the Lunar New Year celebration, which, after taking 2021 off, is returning to ring in the Year of the Tiger from January 21st through February 13th. So if you are listening to us soon after we record it, and you can, still have time to make it to Lunar New Year at DCA. So of course we mentioned that before, but now we're in the middle of it. And long awaited, the construction walls are up around former AMC building in downtown Disney. And this is reported by laughingplace.com. It says Earl of Sandwich, Sugar Boo and Company, and Starbucks have all now closed as Disney prepares to demolish the building that was previously also home to the AMC theaters. As of this morning, and this is back on February 1st, the entire building is surrounded by construction walls as work is due to begin in earnest any day now. This is a multi-year project to reimagine downtown Disney District and will include an even broader collection of shopping, dining, and entertainment experiences. Earl of Sandwich could potentially return in some form during construction, but plans have not yet been finalized. So, stay tuned for more on that. By the way, all these stories are available at thesweepspot.com under current events in our show notes. And remember that if you sign up with Patreon to a certain level, you can, the next time we record, you can be part of our live chat and ask questions and submit comments that we might read during this portion of the show. Mm-hmm. So be sure to do that. Go to thesweepspot.com and click on our Patreon. All right. Disneyland Magic Key pass holders get their own Club 33. So says Brady McDonald at the Orange County Register. He says that Walt Disney Imagineering and Disneyland Cruise began work Monday, January 24th on a renovation of the Magic Key Terrace at DCA that is expected to be completed in late spring. Magic Key Terrace will remain open throughout the renovation, with sections closed and capacity reduced on occasion during the project. The renovated Magic Key Terrace will serve as a hidden respite for annual pass holders, or Magic Key holders, much like the private members-only Club 33 at Disneyland and the 1901 Lounge at DCA. While the renovated Magic Key Terrace won't offer the same elevated level of service and privileges as Club 33, the Passholder Lounge will be a hidden, private, exclusive, members-only second-story hangout, just like the famed spot above New Orleans Square. Of course, you know, how many Magic Key holders are there? So how exclusive is it going to be? The renovation project is a continuation of what began as the Alfresco Tasting Terrace that opened as an exclusive annual passholder bar in January 2020 and returned as the Magic Key Terrace when DCA reopened in spring 2021 following an extended, what, Lynn? Coronavirus closure, ding, 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 of the parks. The passholder bar and eatery will expand from the terrace on the second floor of the Golden Vine Winery into the former dining room of the Vineyard Room restaurant, once run by the Robert Mondavi Winery when DCA opened in February of 2001. Yeah. So,
wow.
Imagineering created a new backstory for the Magic Key Terrace as a beautiful hacienda recently purchased by a young couple that wants to keep the charm of the old place while adding some comfortable contemporary touches. The redesign will keep the beige adobe plaster walls and hacienda architecture styling while adding a contemporary splash of saturated blues, turquoises, and greens. All right.
Do you think that... I think Disneyland needs one too. I mean, because what about in Tomorrowland? There's plenty of room over there, right?
Yeah, you could really do a nice one up on the second level of the empty Innovations building, or whatever the Star Wars launch bay, or whatever, whatever you call it.
Yeah, something like that. I could see. I mean, there's so many Magic Key holders that they could definitely do two, one in each park.
Yeah. Yes, they could. We'll have to see what they plan on doing. I mean, and laughingplace.com also covers the story, so if you don't have a connection to the register, you can click on it there. Okay, so who would staff these places? Well, Disneyland employees' economic plight spotlighted in new Sundance documentary. And this is another Brady McDonald story from the Register. And it's, by the way, this story of the Register is only for their subscribers. So you have to be a subscriber to read this, apparently. And as it says, the American Dream and Other Fairy Tales by documentary filmmaker, philanthropist, and social activist Abigail Disney debuted Monday, January 24th at the Sundance Film Festival, which was moved online due to COVID-19 concerns. The documentary message? Disneyland and the Disney Company epitomize the widening inequality in the United States and the moral breakdown of corporate America. Abigail Disney, the daughter of former Disney senior executive Roy E. Disney and granddaughter of Disney Company co-founder Roy O. Disney, has long been a critic of Disney CEO compensation and the company's treatment of its cast members, Disney parlance for employees. And as it says later in this article, the documentary recounted a 2018 union-backed survey by Occidental College professor Peter Dreyer that found 10% of Disneyland employees were homeless at some point, and 2/3 of them didn't have enough money to pay for food. Disneyland employees interviewed in the documentary said they knew fellow cast members who were on food stamps, slept in their cars, and went without medical care. Okay, so I'm going to comment here. Yes, the pay is not that great. The benefits are pretty good. And of course, there's a whole bunch of perks, which people may or may not care about. But the pay is not that good. But notice, it says here that they knew fellow cast members who were on food stamps, slept in their cars, and went without medical care. Well, obviously, some of them didn't do that. Some of them didn't have those problems because it says I don't have those. Basically, they're saying I didn't have that problem, but I know some fellow cast members who did. And the question is, what was the difference there? Were the ones who didn't go through that, were they in relationships or families or whatever that they had other income? Did they make different choices? I mean, that's, again, I think it would be great if the cast members got paid more. I mean, both of us left because we figured this is not going to support our lifestyle. Yeah. And I mean, I've talked with I've talked with other former cast members, and we've agreed, if we could get the compensation we do now in our line of work, and get that at Disneyland, we would be back at Disneyland. Yeah. But it says here in the story, the documentary took aim at CEO compensation as a key contributor to income inequality in the United States. Roy O. Disney's pay, including stock options in 1967, was 78 times his lowest worker's pay, according to the film. Former Disney CEO Bob Iger made $65 million in 2018, which is 1,400 times the median salary of Disney employees, according to the documentary. The documentary portrayed a Disneyland employee strike in 1984 over the company's demand for a 3-year wage freeze as a turning point for Disneyland cast members. And then later on, it says, Abigail Disney noted in the film that her great-uncle Walt Disney and her family's story were constantly invoked as the embodiment of the American dream. And here's a quote from her: "My grandfather and great-uncle did not rise alone," Abigail Disney said in the movie. In the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, a full-time worker at Disneyland could afford a modest middle-class life, a house, food in the fridge, a car, and the ability to raise a family. That, I'm not going to say that the wages at Disneyland don't play a role in that, but there's a lot more going on than that. It's the costs of living in Orange County, California, and all that stuff. There's a lot more to it than just what Disney is paying or what they're not paying. I mean, it's very sad to read that anyone, there was, of course, somebody who was in custodial who died in her car. You know, she lived in her car apparently, and that's all very sad. You know, nobody, that it shouldn't be happening to anybody, but the question is, why did that happen? And you know, I mean, and now on the one hand, you have people say, well, you know, do what Ken and Lynn did, go get jobs elsewhere, or take on a second job or whatever. But you know what? It's finding another job when you're working at Disneyland can be difficult because, you know, let's say you say, well, I'm going to start working at another job and maybe eventually I'll quit Disneyland or whatever. But when Disneyland requires that you be available 7 days a week, not that they're necessarily going to work you 7 days a week, but they're going to, you know, you have to be available, you know, all day long, 7 days a week, year round. If that's the deal, it's very hard. I mean, what can you tell another employer? Because another employer is going to want to know which days are you available. I mean, surely you have 2 days a week off from Disneyland, and I can work you those 2 days. It's like, well, those 2 days aren't always going to be the same days. You know, I don't have a regular set schedule that never changes. Disney has been known to change shifts, expand shifts, change your days off, split your days off, whatever. You know, it's not so easy just to say, well, go get a second job.
Right,
you know?
right.
So the cast members get into a pretty hard spot there, you know, and so it is difficult. I do think that they should be paid more, but they, on the other hand, they do, you know, they are represented by unions. You know, what is the company supposed to do? Is the company just supposed to say, well, you know, your unions haven't negotiated a higher rate than this, but we're going to give you a higher rate anyway? It's like they've got, these cast members have unions that are supposed to be negotiating for them. Anyway,
Yeah.
We could talk forever about that. I don't, you know, we've got our own opinions about it, but I wanted people to know about the documentary in case they're interested. Some more worker news, and this comes from mouseplanet.com. It's a section of one of their updates. It says the union says Disney is moving ahead with vaccine mandate for employees. Workers United Local 50 Union posted on Facebook last week that the Disneyland Resort is moving ahead with a COVID-19 vaccine mandate for its workers. And here's a quote: "We have received notice after months of good faith negotiations on the matter that the company will be moving forward on a vaccine mandate for Local 50 and other unions not currently under a mandate. The post states that workers must submit their verification by April 11th. Chris Shively, a shop steward for the union, stated in the comments, "For everyone asking why we didn't come to an agreement with Disney, we requested that they also require guests to show proof of vaccination or a negative test, and Disney said no. The Walt Disney World Resort had to lift its vaccine mandate after Florida lawmakers banned such policies." So Disneyland's going to have a vaccine mandate for its cast members, but Walt Disney World won't. And there's no vaccine mandate for the guests, you know, or even a negative test mandate. So, so that's interesting. So, you know, they expect the cast members to be vaccinated, but they're not going to require that of the guests or it's just, I just want people to be informed of that. I know it's a hot button issue, but, you know, I figure I want you to be informed on that one way or the other, whatever your feelings are. Now, let's get back to offerings inside the parks themselves. Disneyland sets dates for expanded Celebrate Gospel Music Festival. And this is a Brady McDonald story from the Register. Disneyland kicks off Black History Month by pairing the returning Celebrate Gospel Music Festival with the new and larger Celebrate Soulfully month-long event that honors the triumphs and struggles of African Americans throughout U.S. history. The new Celebrate Soulfully event, running throughout February at Disneyland, DCA, and Downtown Disney, and Disney's Grand California Hotel, celebrates the work of Black artists through song, dance, food, and stories. The similar celebratory names attempt to align two Black History Month events that have been running at Disneyland, which includes Celebrate Gospel, and Walt Disney World, Celebrate Soulfully, into one cohesive package. So the article mentions music, it mentions characters, art, and food, so and shopping. So there's a lot going on that's tied into that. And another register story, Disneyland plans summer debut for Lion King show. A Lion King musical stage show coming to Disneyland this summer will offer a new adaptation of the ancestral story of how a young lion cub becomes king of the jungle, told with singers, dancers, and drummers. The Tale of the Lion King show will open in early summer at Disneyland's Fantasyland Theater, according to the Disney Auditions website. Disney Live Entertainment is seeking singers, dancers, and drummers for the Lion King show, with rehearsals beginning in late April, according to the audition website. So the Tale of the Lion King show moves to the Fantasyland Theater after playing on the banks of Paradise Bay in the World of Color viewing area before the pandemic closure of DCA. The modest-sized DCA show, featuring an ensemble cast of 18 performers, will likely expand to match the scale and size of the Fantasyland Theater. So, indications of more live entertainment coming back to the resort there, Lynn.
Awesome.
Yeah. Now, I know whenever you visit, what you're interested in doing at Disneyland is working out.
Oh, yeah.
And from the official Disney Parks blog comes the story of Disneyland Resort hotel guests can step into fun new fitness classes at DCA Hotel, at the Grand Californian Hotel and Spa, I should say. Take a yoga class with scenic views of DCA, or relax during guided meditation. Focus on stretching. Get in gear at a boot camp in the park. Test yourself on an obstacle challenge at the Redwood Creek Challenge Trail, or find yourself on a paddleboard in there I go again, Disney's Grand Californian Hotel and Spa's fountain pool. So, they have a whole listing of, and again, you can click through at thesweepspot.com for the entire story. As they say here are a few highlights of more than a dozen fitness classes, 30 to 45 minutes in length, offered through Tenaya Stone Spa and the fitness center at the Grand Californian Hotel and Spa, which are tailored to a variety of skill levels. So, As Disneyland Resort hotel guests, you may also work out in any of the 3 complimentary hotel fitness centers, also located at the Disneyland Hotel and the Paradise Pier Hotel. Strength machines like advanced ellipticals, regular and recumbent bicycles, treadmills, and stair climbers are great for cardio workout. And if you want to pump some iron, weight loss machines and free weights are also available. I know you're lining up for it, Lynn.
Well, every time I've gone to the park, I walk like 10 miles. So I don't know how much energy I'd have to do
Visiting the park is exercise.
Yeah.
Now, I can imagine if somebody was attending like a convention or something there, and they were going to be sitting down a lot, they might want to, if they're fitness-minded people, if they're doing this a lot when they're home, they might, they don't want to go a week without, keeping up on their fitness routine. So, the laughingplace.com also has details about that story. As usual, mychat.com has Disneyland updates. One of them from Logan Collins is called Disneyland Update, Low Weights and Good Fortune. And he says, Disneyland is often looked at as, January is often looked at as Disneyland's off-season. But there is plenty of activity to be found all throughout the resort, with several major construction projects underway and the return of a popular seasonal celebration. The resort feels anything but slow. Let's journey through the land of construction scrims and Lunar New Year celebrations. Now, here's something that I think you'll have an opinion on. Okay. And I think I kind of predicted this. There's a Dateline Disneyland update from MiceChat called Character Conundrum, Spring Sprung, and Construction Hum. And this from Andy Castro. Now, here's the part that I wanted to call your attention to. Would you pay for characters? Last week, Walt Disney World announced certain character meet and greet locations would be added to the Genie Plus Lightning Lane service. While the change doesn't lock out guests from a standby queue option, it does underscore the flexibility of the new Genie system to be applied across multiple types of attractions and experiences. For now, Disneyland hasn't announced adding character meet and greets to its version of the Genie Plus service, likely because the Anaheim theme parks are still offering character greetings strictly on a socially distanced basis. Most characters are greeting guests without queues. Instead, guests are encouraged to walk up, wave, and snap selfies with characters from a distance. In some cases, like with princesses, guests can walk past 2 or 3 princesses at Fantasy Fair for socially distanced banter and selfies. Other princesses and characters are found elsewhere at unpublished times. Why do we think this might happen at all? Because Disney Parks management is in the process of being consolidated in Florida, and more operations are being standardized between the Orlando and Anaheim resorts. But with traditional queued one-on-one meet and greets with characters simply not available at Disneyland due to health and safety protocols, it might be a while longer before we see Mickey Mouse or the princesses added to Genie Plus. But what happens when the need for socially distanced greetings goes away in the future? Well, it's likely certain character meet and greets like Mickey's House and Fantasy Fair will be added to Genie Plus. It's even possible certain characters could be added to the individual Lightning Lane roster in the future. For example, would you be willing to pay $10 extra to meet the main character from Disney's latest hit movie? And while standby lines would still be offered, they would no doubt swell as all the other lines that Disneyland have due to the monumental impact of Genie Plus. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
I don't know. I mean, so they were talking about this on Fresh Bake today on the on YouTube, and I had left a comment because he was asking, so does that mean that everyone, so Genie Plus to go on, say, Big Thunder, everyone in your group has to pay for Genie Plus to go on it. But so to see a character, if you are a group of people, does everyone in that group, in order to be in the picture, need to have that? You know what I mean? So no, you get out of the picture. You didn't pay. You know, I don't know. You know what I mean? Or is it a group thing? Like if the main person in the group, you know, one person in the group buys it, is that good for your whole group? You know, so I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I just feel like that's going to be something else that people are going to complain about. Say another upcharge, you know. So I don't know. We'll find out.
yeah, it's people might. Some of our younger listeners might be surprised to hear this, but mostly if they weren't in a live show or a parade or something like that, characters used to walk around the resort
freely. Yeah.
The park, I should say. It's not like they're walking around out in front of the park.
Right.
But you could be walking through the hub, the Central Plaza, and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs are walking through the plaza,
Right.
And they might stop to pose for pictures or whatever, but eventually it became more standardized, more protected, more organized. People they have a human handler, human I should say, a live action handler, who is there and makes people line up, and because you would have people would cut in front of others or whatever.
Right.
It's much more formalized now. So and of course right now, because of there's the social distancing, but that'll change eventually, maybe. It's changed a lot over the years for various reasons,
Right.
So, but, hey, what's going on with refurbishments?
Well, we have a couple new ones and some that I've repeated over the last few weeks, but we have some dates. So first off, Finding Nemo subs is still down. No return date, but I heard that there's still a sign out there say coming in winter. So is that winter 2023 now, or 2022 instead of this winter? That, you know what I mean, by next like the end of this year, because winter's going to be over soon, and as far as the calendar on the website goes, it's like till mid-March. So, and it's still not open yet. They don't have an opening date in the calendar. Mark Twain will be down February 26th. Sailing Ship Columbia, no return date. Splash Mountain is still down, and it will... Oh, I'm sorry. So the Mark Twain back there. Mark Twain is down now. It'll reopen on February 26th, I believe. Okay, and then Sailing Ship Columbia, no return date. Splash Mountain is returning March 8th, so just in time for spring break. Tarzan's Treehouse, no return date yet. So I don't know what they're doing with that. I don't know. I don't think that's a COVID thing. And then Grizzly River Run, no return date. Inside Out Emotional Whirlwind is February 11th, coming back. The monorail. So the monorail is going down February 14th and will return March 7th. So really not as long as I had thought. But I don't think the station is being affected as much, and then is really affected. I think it's that beam that runs, run like right kind of by the Lego store over that direction. I think that has something to do with it, with that. Maybe they anticipate by then a lot of the demo work will be done. So, and then one thing in the future is Indy is going to be down from March 8th to March 11th. So that's only a couple days. So I don't think they'll be doing anything major there. But that's all we have for the near future.
All right. So keep that in mind if you are heading out there. But can you really keep track of all this stuff? There's people who do keep track of all this stuff, all the changes, all the rules, the new offerings, the new deals, and it's our friends at concierge.com. So if you want to book your next Disney getaway vacation, do it with concierge.com. They are our magical vacation planning partners. If you contact them and have them book your next Disney getaway vacation, whether to Walt Disney World or Disneyland or Disney's Aulani in Hawaii, Disney Cruise Line, Adventures by Disney, it's not going to add any cost to your vacation. It's just going to take away a lot of stress. So they keep up to date on it. They do all the heavy lifting. They make reservations for you. It's conciergears.com, kind of like concierge and mouse ears, concierge.com. Now, what you want to do is book a package with them. For instance, week on the cruise or theme park tickets and a Disney hotel stay. And when you book a package with them, you tell them that the Sweep Spot sent you, and they'll pretend like they have no idea who you're talking about. No, what they do is they go, you get a special gift, but you have to book a package with them and tell them that the Sweep Spot sent you. So they are our good friends, our magical vacation planning partners, concierge.com. Go ahead and book your next Disney getaway vacation.
Hello, everyone. This is Eric Johnson with Concierge, and welcome to the D180. While Ken and Lynn cover all things Disneyland, in the D180, we take a spin around the rest of the Disney universe, and we do it in 180 seconds. Let's jump right in. We begin our journey on, both coasts. What a twist! February is Black History Month, and Disney has celebrations planned at both Walt Disney World and Disneyland. Disney World kicked off the Celebrate Soulfully event last year, and they're going to reprise that role in 2022. Black artists will bring Motown, jazz, R&B, and pop hits to Disney Springs all month long. At Epcot's American Adventure, return to the soul of jazz, an exhibit that describes that quintessential American music form in its development from Kansas City to Harlem. The exhibit features artifacts from famous jazz artists as well as nods to the movie Soul. In Disneyland, Celebrate Gospel returns to the parks, moving from DCA stages to perform at Disney's Fantasyland Theater for the first time. Multiple artists take the stage this year, including Kiara Shepherd, Sacred Groove, Molly Music, the Singers of Soul, and community choirs from around Southern California. The Downtown Disney District also features guests on its stage near the Disneyland Hotel. There's so much music happening around the resort that you'll need multiple visits to catch it all. Let's hop a flight to Europe to hit up a region whose towns I can pronounce a little better than those French ones from last time. Adventures by Disney has an adventure planned for the whole family spanning 8 days, 7 nights, 17 meals, and 15 locations around Norway. No, Arendelle is not a real place, but fjords are real, and you can see them here. Say willkommen as you prepare for your journey around this Scandinavian landscape. Depart to Voss for some river rafting and waterfall seeing before you head to Flom. Yes, Flom. Your hotel here gives you amazing views of fjords that would make Slartibartfast weep in pride. Oh wait, many of you won't get that reference probably. Oh well. Anyway, spend a few days hiking and cruising around that coastline and visit a few of the early Norwegian Christian stave churches that date back to the 12th century. If you've ever seen the reproduction of one of these churches at Epcot's Norway, get ready for the real thing. Round out your trip in Norway's Oslo, where the old meets new. Say farewell to the Scandinavian nation while folk dancers, dance, while you enjoy the delicacies of the North. That's enough reality for now, right? Let's head south to a place where there's a theme park, okay? Disneyland Paris unveiled the next step in their Avengers campus recently, and it's different from what we see in the US. A Quinjet landed, and according to the traditions of comic books and the Marvel Cinematic Universe itself, it's different from the one that we see at Disney's California Adventure. Imagineers want to connect the campuses in Paris, Anaheim, and the Stark Expo in Hong Kong Disneyland. So the jet looks a little bit different, but it's focused on that great big beautiful tomorrow of Paris's Avengers campus. The Avengers campus opens up this summer in 2022, so be sure to look for more news on that front. Speaking of Hong Kong Disneyland, let's spin that globe a bit to head to their park. No Avengers content in this portion, as we're going to look at the Castle of Magical Dreams. Yes, that's actually the name of their castle in the hub of the park. At that castle, you can find a jewelry shop. Inside said shop, named Enchanted Treasures, look for a pure gold replica of the castle that stands almost 3 feet high. It weighs nearly 20 pounds and is worth, get this, $2 million. You can buy it, folks. The first guest to buy this treasure is also entitled to a lifetime pass to the park. If you don't have that kind of cash, you can still get in on the action with a few selfies in front of the castle. If you want a more affordable, smaller version of the castle, you can buy a Christmas tree ornament for about $20,000. Or spend about $600 on a collection of golden coins celebrating Disney princesses. Or buy a t-shirt for a few bucks. I don't know, gold's an investment, right? And that's 180 seconds. I hope you enjoyed our quick spin around the rest of the Disney universe. If you would like to learn more about these Disney adventures or just have a few questions, please come on over and visit the Facebook pages and websites of both the Sweep Spot and us, their official travel planner concierge. We look forward to planning something special for you and your family. I'm Eric Johnson, and this has been your D180.
Welcome. Guess you all know this little fella here. It's an old partnership. Mickey and I started out the first time many, many years ago. We've had a lot of our dreams come true. Now we want you to share with us our latest and greatest dream. Disneyland.
So our guest tonight is someone that is very familiar to the Sweep Spot podcast. And if you've been a listener of our show for a while, then you know this man's name. And he is a Disney historian and an author of many, many books that we always highly suggest. And that is Jim Korkis. Welcome back, Jim.
Well, thank you for inviting me back again. I hope none of your listening audience is going, oh, no, it's Korkis again.
I doubt that very much. So we've going to start our series for this year, and we usually, in case you're new, we usually will talk about a particular year that has to do with the year we're in. So we're in 2022. So all the years in Disneyland history that end with a 2, we're going to cover this year sometime. But I talked to Jim and I asked him, what year would you like to talk about Disneyland? And I said, what, 62, 72, 82, 92, and he said 52. And I said, wait a minute, Jim. Disneyland didn't even open until 55, and they didn't start building it until 54. So what's the deal? And he had a lot to say. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. So I'm all talked out. So nobody will. No, no. Actually, one of the exciting things about being on Sweet Spot is that I get the opportunity to talk about things that people might not normally know. That doesn't exist in the typical Disneyland books that you have in your personal library, or things, even books that I wrote about Disneyland. These things don't exist in them. So 1952, believe it or not, was when Walt Disney announced he was building Disneyland, and it was not in Anaheim. Now, for those of you who have thought, yep, it's time for Korkis to be taken away to the assisted living facility right now, and put in a soft room, I'm going to be able to reveal that, but it's going to take a while to get there, because these things don't just pop up immediately. Disneyland just didn't magically appear out of Walt's head one day. It was a process of getting there. This is February. It's Black History Month. I was talking on another podcast about Black history, and I was talking about how much I loved James Basquet's portrayal of Uncle Remus. He was just about the perfect choice, and he was, many people forget that he was the first African-American male to get an Oscar. Now, Sidney Poitier, who just passed away, got an Oscar, and that was a competitive Oscar. The one Basquiat got was an honorary Oscar that Walt lobbied for. But Basquiat was not the first choice. Walt had looked at Paul Robeson, who he saw in a Broadway stage production of Porgy and Bess. And most of you may know Robeson from appearing in the movie Showboat, singing Old Man River.
Oh, yeah.
And he also he spent many months talking with Robeson about doing that. And then he also spoke with Rex Ingram. Rex Ingram was the genie in the Alex Korda live-action film Thief of Baghdad. And both of them, very fine actors, but I think Basquiat brought this special warmth, to that. And unfortunately, he's being blackened out of Disney history, along with the rest of Song of the South. In the hopes that Disney fans will forget, that such a film even existed. But I've gotten off the tangent. Let's get back to Disneyland 1952.
Yeah.
And Lynn said, do you think you can fill an hour? Listen, I can fill an hour talking about, gee, what is... But anyway, Disneyland 1952. Walt was very serious about creating an amusement park. In 1911, Walt's parents moved to Kansas City, Missouri. And that was his first exposure to an amusement park. It was called Electric Park. It was located about 15 blocks north of the Disney home. And Walt would often just, walk there. And, of course, the Disney family was not need to go in and that, so he would look through the fence. But Walt being Walt, he and a friend of his found that at the back of Electric Park there was this drainage ditch, and you could actually crawl underneath the fence and get into the park. And Walt would do that, and his sister Ruth was just appalled. And in later years, Walt told Ruth never to tell that story because he didn't want people trying that at Disneyland. So Electric Park was called Electric Park because it was illuminated at night by 100,000 lights. A train ran around the perimeter of the park. There were daily fireworks at closing time. There was a wide variety of entertainment. They had concerts there. There was an alligator farm, a penny arcade, a scenic railway, boats, a circle swing, that spins around. Out here in Orlando, we've got that circle swing, but it's 300 feet up in the air, so I'm never going up there.
Whoa, yeah.
And now they just opened the sling, which will shoot you 450 feet straight up in the air. Now, some people find that entertaining, maybe even some of your listeners. For me, not so much.
No.
There was a shooting gallery. Of course, there was a carousel, because every amusement park, that's the heart of an amusement park, is a carousel. They had fortune-telling booths, and that was important, too, because Walt was able to get his fortune told, and the fortune teller told him that he wouldn't live beyond 35 years old. So for those of you who are always wondering, why was Walt seen to be so driven, to do so much and all of that, after he hit 35, he felt he was living on borrowed time.
Yeah.
Just because of that fortune teller at Electric Park. A decade later, in Kansas City, Walt was operating the Laugh-O-Gram studio, and animator Rudy Ising, of Harmon and Ising, who did a lot of MGM cartoons and all later, said that Walt told him that one of these days he was going to build an amusement park and it was going to be clean. There's a lot of things to dislike about amusement parks, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that as we get further into the story. Because we're only at 1937, because at 1937, that was the release of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs at the Los Angeles Carthay Circle Theater. And for publicity purposes, during the movie's run at the theater, you don't realize how much advanced publicity, was negative towards Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So you're going to do everything to try and, generate attendance and anticipation and all that. Walt built a small Snow White island, approximately 900 feet long. It was built in the median of a nearby street, and it featured a mill wheel and the dwarf's diamond, at least the entrance to the diamond mine, and you go in a little bit, a wishing well, there was a forest, and there was a cottage, and it was all designed just like from the film, and Walt hired small actors, to put on dwarf heads and all that, and, go about their tasks. And it was hugely popular. As you can imagine, it literally stopped traffic. And Walt told animator Wilford Jackson that one day he would like to build an amusement park with the same small proportions for children to enjoy, based on Disney films. And then just a couple of years later, in 1940, he told Ben Sharpstein, who was his right-hand man at the time, that he wanted to create some type of amusement venue for visitors to his new animation studio in Burbank, where they could meet the Disney characters. in person, in their fantasy surroundings. But, it all comes down to money. And then, of course, we're talking in the 40s, you've got World War II. And so that delays any further discussion of any project, other than doing military training films and all this. But already you can see that Walt is trying to process. And every time he goes to someplace like Knott's Berry Farm or the Los Angeles County Fair, or to even smaller areas like Dave Bradley's Beverly Park, which was on the corner of Beverly and Fairfax, basically where Farmers Market is today. And that was what was known as a kiddie park because it had rides designed primarily for children. It wasn't that, an adult and a child could ride together. It was a small boat, and the kids would do that and would go around. And so Walt would take his two young daughters there, and there was a pony ride, and out front were authentic circus wagons that Walt later bought and then moved to Disneyland for the Mickey Mouse Circus.
Oh.
So anyway, after World War II, tourism to California began to increase. Now, can either of you tell me even one of the top 3 things that tourists said they wanted to do when they visited California, specifically Southern California?
Well, they wanted to eat it in and
one of
out.
the top 3.
They wanted to eat it in and out.
I miss In-N-Out. We've got Five Guys out here, and that's pretty good, but I have a nostalgic connection to In-N-Out. And in fact, our governor out here tried to convince In-N-Out, to move it out to Florida because we're very lax on COVID restrictions.
Yeah.
Any guess what the top 3 things that tourists in the late 1940s, early 1950s wanted to do?
I think I know.
Okay.
They wanted to see the Walt Disney Studios or see how animation's made.
Well, actually, it's even broader than that. They just
Okay.
wanted to visit any movie studio.
Okay.
But that's good.
Okay.
So there's 2 more in the top 3.
Meet Mickey Mouse.
No. Put a foot in the Pacific Ocean.
Okay.
And pick an orange off of a tree.
Really?
Yeah. It's so obvious once you know, right?
Yeah.
And I've had a chance to interview a lot of people who worked for Disney. I interviewed Ward Kimball. And Ward Kimball told me that in the 40s and the 50s, Walt told him, it's a shame people come to Hollywood and find there's nothing to see. Even the people who make it into the Disney studio, they just see a bunch of guys, bending over drawings and, swigging out of a flask. Wouldn't it be nice if people could come to Hollywood and see something,
Yeah.
And so Ward knew at that time, because Walt was talking about this all the time to everybody there. The animator Milt Call said in an interview that, when you went to Walt's office, to talk about something, maybe an animated scene or something like that, Walt would often turn the conversation to, what if we could build, a little place that, and in the summer of 48, he was really inspired because he went with Kimball to the Chicago Railroad Fair, and that was done up with, there was a train that ran around the entire fair, and it had special stops, and each stop represented a different part of the country, the Wild West, that type of thing. And then Walt and Ward afterwards visited Greenfield Village in Dearborn, Michigan, that Ford had set up, and he'd brought in all these authentic, turn-of-the-century buildings. And he also had a train that went around the whole thing. And so by the time Walt got back, he was just, if these other things can be built, they can be built. Let's work on that. And so he first thought of using, the Disney studio had about 2.5 acres of land that was set aside for storage. And he thought, well, maybe I can, do that. And he visited that space, according to his diary, for roughly 2 months to see if, this could, you could build this amusement enterprise on 2.5 acres there at the studio. And at the time, it was a smaller vision. It was he wanted a type of playground that didn't compete with nearby Griffith Park. It had, that movie theming, all of that. And then he decided, no, that's not going to work. And then he saw that across the street from the studio owned 16 acres of land. Now, this is where today you've got that Sorcerer's Apprentice animation building in the ABC studios. Mm-hmm. But in those days, that was just a weed-covered field. And so Walt was thinking, hey, that might work. And so in late 1948, after the visit to the Chicago Railroad Fair in Greenfield Village, Walt put together a proposal that he sent to the Disney studio production designer, Dick Kelsey, in the hopes that Kelsey might help come up with some design that could incorporate all of this. And Walt called this idea Mickey Mouse Park. And he called it Mickey Mouse Park not just because of the popularity of Mickey Mouse, but he wanted it to represent the Mickey Mouse brand, that it was welcoming to people of all ages, all nationalities, the whole thing. And everything in the park would have elements that would be associated with that, And, I talk to people, and they say, oh, yeah, Disneyland Park. It was called Park because it's an amusement park. It's a theme park. No, Walt called it a park because he was thinking of Griffith Park. And he wanted well-kept greenery. He wanted benches where people could sit down, and Disneyland has now taken out these benches. I'm very concerned about that. But his point was people should be able to come in and just sit and relax, in addition to anything else that was going on. I have a copy of Walt's proposal. Would you like to hear what Walt wrote in his own words? Yeah. Okay. Here we go, and then every now and then we'll stop for Korkis commentary because I am a former junior high school teacher, so I'm in love with the sound of my own voice. So I'll be doing that every now and then, but hopefully doing it to put things into context, to put things into perspective. Okay, here in Walt's own words, the main village, which includes the railroad station, is built around a village green or informal park. In the park will be benches, a bandstand, drinking fountains, trees and shrubs. It will be a place for people to sit and rest. Mothers and grandmothers can watch over small children at play. I want it to be very relaxing, cool, and inviting. Around the park will be built the town. At one end will be the railroad station. At the other end, the town hall. The hall will be built to represent a town hall of the turn of the century, but actually we will use it as our administration building. It will be the headquarters of the entire project. Adjoining the town hall will be the fire and police stations. The fire station will contain practical fire apparatus used in the early part of the century. Does this all start to sound similar?
Yes, yes.
Okay. The police station will be put to practical use. Here the visitors will report all violations, lost articles, lost kids, etc. In it, we could have a little jail where the kids could look in. We might even have some characters in it. Now, where Walt got that idea is Knott's Berry Farm. If any of you had visited Knott's Berry Farm in the 50s and 60s, maybe even into the 70s, they had that. And again, it was a wonderful photo opportunity type thing. Okay, now in the memo, it also listed, now remember, Walt was going to put all of these on 16 acres. All of the ideas that Walt wanted: a drugstore with a soda fountain, an opera house and movie theater, toy, book, hobby, doll, and children's clothing shops, a doll hospital and toy repair shop, so that literally when people visited, kids could bring their broken toys and it would be fixed, in this little shop. A candy factory, and next to it a store selling old-fashioned penny candy. A magic shop, a store selling dollhouse furniture, ice cream and hot dog stands, a restaurant featuring rooms for birthday parties. And we're not finished yet. Hang on. All of this in 16 acres. A functioning post office, a horse-drawn streetcar, a general store, a pony ring. And for those who don't know what a pony ring is it's a fenced circle, and you get on ponies, and the ponies go in this circle as you're riding them there. A donkey pack train, a stagecoach, a singing waterfall, and statues of Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and other famous Disney animated characters. And Walt even seriously considered including his backyard home miniature railroad, known as the Carolwood Pacific. At first, he was going to use the Carolwood Pacific at the Disney studio, so it would serpentine through the sound stages. My gosh, what an imagination. Can you try to imagine how he would do that? That's like sticking, 20 pounds of Disneyland into a 5-pound bag.
Well, Galaxy's Edge, I think, is 14 acres, if I recall correctly, or something like that. I mean, it's
close to that. Yes.
It gives you an idea. He was really trying to pack a lot in there. So.
Well, and if anybody could have done it, it would have been Walt. Now, I also got to interview John Hench, and John Hench, during this time period, the late 40s, early 50s, was living on Riverside Drive in Burbank, which is very close to the Walt Disney Studios. And he told me that he remembered several Sundays, looking out his window and seeing Walt across the street from the studio, standing there and looking and squinting, and he was stepping off something and measuring the space, and he had a paper in his hand and was writing things or drawing things. And Hank said, I was sure that's where he was going to put the park. We'd heard rumors at the studio for years that he was going to build a little park, and I thought, hey, that's where he's going to put it. And I think he really, Hank said, I think he really thought he could get it all in there. But when you knew Walt, you knew the idea wouldn't stay small. The longer Walt thought about it, the more ideas he got, and eventually that space wouldn't be big enough. And Hench said he even saw Walt crouching down so he can see from the perspective of an average child where things should be located. And he started putting wooden stakes out there to mark where pathways would be and all of that. When I talked to Diane Disney Miller about all of this, she said, listen, at home, his conversations just became more and more sweeping, about this, that we just didn't take it seriously anymore because, how could that ever be done? That's not gonna work. Okay. Now we're up to December 1951, so we're getting to the 52 here, right? December 1951. Walt contacted the Burbank city manager about the possibility, and this is in the Parks and Recreation board minutes, the possibility of building an 8-mile railroad in Griffith Park with the ending point being this 16 acres on Walt's land. And so the train would start at the Griffith Park Carousel, and then the track would follow alongside a golf course. And Walt, in his proposal, said that they were going to build a chain link fence to make sure people in the train wouldn't get hit by golf balls. So I guess he was expecting it was going to be an open air type train. And the Parks and Recreation Department really liked this idea. It would attract more people to Griffith Park, and Walt was covering the cost. Yeah, okay, let's develop this idea of a Mickey Mouse park. But where Walt was going to get financing for all of this is anybody's guess. That never worried Walt. And of course, he would always go to Roy, but Roy was not just disinterested in a Mickey Mouse park. He was actively opposed to it, because they had just come out of World War II, and so, money was tight. They had almost gone into bankruptcy because, they were doing all of these military training films at cost, so there was no profit to cover overhead and all of that. And Roy told someone that Walt does a lot of talking about amusement park, but I think he's more interested in ideas that would make a good amusement park than he is in actually running one himself. And remember, Roy is the guy who didn't want to go into color. When they were doing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, said, stick to the shorts. Even tried to discourage, Walt building Disneyland. And I think that is a great thing, because since Roy and Lillian both disagreed with Walt on new projects that he wanted to do, Walt was such a fighter that he would get his back up and he would work harder to prove that it could work and it should be done. Without them, Walt might say, well, if everybody's already on board with this, maybe it's not as good an idea as I thought, Walt realized he needed to get financing outside of the studio, the movie, because, until, Cinderella hit in 50, and then later you get Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland and all that, it was a shaky financial situation. So Walt thought on Mickey Mouse Park of building a soundstage disguised as an opera house or some type of theater, I guess. And they would do live broadcasts, and that would help offset the costs of the park. And when not broadcasting, live shows would be performed or cartoons screened, in that building. So feeling that he might somehow be able to find the financing he needed, he hired Charlie Luckman and Bill Perea, who had an architectural firm, and they were in the process of designing Marineland of the Pacific that would open in 1954. And they immediately told Walt that the space he had picked was much too small. But Walt felt that with proper planning, it could all work, and he pushed them to try. He hired them and worked with them. And to help, he hired a guy by the name of Dick Irvine, who was working as a set designer at 20th Century Fox. That's how Dick Irvine made it into the Disney company. And Dick Irvine, of course, one of the chief designers of Disneyland and later Walt Disney World, and later the head of Imagineering. This is how he came in, is because of the Mickey Mouse part. And Walt didn't know architectural terms and all this, so needed somebody who had a background in film, but also a background in architecture, so could communicate with these people. Well, the firm came out with a preliminary concept where 7 acres would be used for the park and the rest of the acreage necessary for parking. Walt hit the roof. He said that is not enough space for the park, and he would find parking elsewhere and to expand the area for the park. And so the final version that the firm came up with, and this still exists, they have copies of this in the Disney archives, but lots of luck trying to get a chance to take a look at it, showed the placement of buildings, water, sewer, electrical lines, all of that infrastructure, among other things. And the firm decided that it would be best to have just one entrance to the park. In those days, amusement parks had several entrances. And the reason for that was to increase people coming in, and also that once they got into the park, they would get disoriented and confused and not know which way to go out. But this firm said, nope, you need one entrance, which Walt kept in mind when he was building Disneyland, which was a very, very smart move. But Walt was disappointed in the lack of magic, the theatricality and all of that, in the plan. So he decided to hand the assignment to his own studio artist. So again, Dick Irvine got involved with this, and Walt had hired another guy, Harper Goff, who he had met and was, very interested in miniature trains and all this. This is how Harper Goff got brought into the Disney studio, was to work on this Mickey Mouse park. And Harper Goff, of course, is the guy who came up with the Jungle Cruise for Disneyland and so many other things. And Goff was the one who painted a detailed aerial view in full color of the park. And some of you have seen that. Some of you have seen that in books on Disneyland and all that. That's the work of Harper Goff. And Walt sent Jack Cutting, who was working in the studio on foreign releases for films, to look for a suitable antique carousel in Europe that could be purchased and brought over for this park. So Walt was pretty darn serious about this. Now, bordering the LA flood control channel used for the Los Angeles River on one side and Riverside Drive on the other, the entrance to the Mickey Mouse Park would have been at the crossroads of Riverside Drive and South Buena Vista Street. And that's where the administration and maintenance buildings would be built, and that was where the single entrance would be. Now, we talked a little bit about what was in the park, right? Mm-hmm. Walt didn't stop there. The park would have had a large oval man-made lagoon with a long, thin island in the center that would house a wild bird sanctuary. And by the way, that wild bird sanctuary ended up in the plans for Disneyland. There was supposed to be an arboretum in Disneyland, and it would spike up, really high. Because you think, oh well, these other lands seem to have, this weenie, the rocket ship sticking up, and the Mark Twain steamboat and all that. The weenie for Adventureland was going to be this bird sanctuary arboretum. But it was going to be right next to the Jungle Cruise. And if you look at early artwork, it was there. But again, as money started to run out, that was something you could get rid of. There was going to be a scaled-down version of a Mississippi riverboat, just like the Mark Twain, and it would dock at a boathouse at one end of the lagoon, and it would cruise around the island. And Walt even, on the map, put in Skull Rock from Disney's Peter Pan, and just around the bend from that would be a lighthouse, you know? Now, this is not the end of it. This is not the end of it for 16 acres, all right? In addition, there would be a picnic area. There would be the turn-of-the-century town square with shops, and that's where the carousel would be, actually. And there would be a space for a small carnival or fairgrounds that would be held there. There would be a scaled-down steam train with its turn-of-the-century depot, that went around all of this. Horse-drawn streetcars, surreys, and buckboards. And these would take guests from Town Square out to Granny Kincaid's farm. There would also be a riverside cafe, a spaceship mock-up that you could go in, a submarine mock-up that you could go in, and more. Now, for those who might not, Granny Kincaid doesn't sound quite familiar. Granny Kincaid's farm, that was from the 1948 Disney live-action film So Dear to My Heart. And Walt actually used that, to build the first little operational model for his Disneylandia project, where he was going to do miniature scenes and then put them in railroad cars and then take the railroad cars, all around the country. But, things would move. In Granny Kincaid's cabin, the rocker would move back and forth, and you would hear Granny Kincaid over a voiceover narration talking about that. But at Granny Kincaid's farm, there would be livestock, because Walt felt that city kids were losing touch, with live animals and all that. The stagecoach attraction would go through Granny Kincaid's farm and would pass by an Indian village with authentic Native Americans. Boy, that ended up at Disneyland, too. A flow canal boat attraction through a Lilliputian land. Boy, that's storybook land right there. And in fact, for the original design for Disneyland, up in the upper right-hand corner, Walt had space for a Granny Kincaid's farm and also for a Lilliputian land. And he wanted everything little, including selling, little hot dogs and little hamburgers and that type of thing, before, that became popular. And there would be a creek with a covered bridge. We're not finished yet.
Okay.
Nearby would be a vintage western town with shops and an old mill with a mill pond. And then Walt, at the last moment, decided he was going to add plans for a possible donkey ride on the same stagecoach trail, make multiple use of that, and that there would be a frontier museum. Now, a lot of this was inspired by, what he saw at Knott's Berry Farm. And he and Walter Knott were friends, I don't think they were social friends. I haven't seen, documentation of them, going out to eat at restaurants and things like that. But they were friends. Now, penciled in the margin of this aerial view with all of these things in there, Walt had circled a notation, castle with a question mark.
Oh.
And other sketches for the park included a haunted house, a petting zoo, a museum displaying Walt's miniature collection. because Walter Knott displayed his miniature collection at Knott's Berry Farm. And perhaps also including those mechanical scenes for Disneylandia that had been built. And Walt wanted a small child-friendly roller coaster that would go over a bridge that looked like it was broken. So that's that little thrill element there. And it was inspired by the Little Dipper coaster at Beverly Park, which we talked about before, and it was a huge influence on Disneyland. And it was a coaster, unlike most of the other attractions there at the park. A parent and a child could ride together over the gentle curves. So, you think of, Gadget's Go Coaster and things like that. Something, very similar to that. The turn of the Century Town Square and Western Village and Farm were very important to Walt because he said he didn't just want to entertain, people with pony rides and swings and all. He wanted them to learn something about their heritage. And so that's why that wanted to be incorporated, and that's why some things got incorporated into Disneyland, because even then Walt thought that people were losing, their sense of American history. Now, obviously, these are expanding, and you've only got 16 acres. Well, Walt saw that there were 10 acres of land directly to the north of the property and another 10 directly to the south. And they were both owned by the city of Burbank, and he hoped that they might lease to him that land at a modest price. And because, again, he argued the park would increase tax revenues. There's the prestige of having a Disney outdoor attraction, in your city, for crying out loud. And it would certainly benefit the city in other ways as well. However, that land usage had to be approved by the Burbank City Council. Now, for all you aspiring Disney historians out there, you might want to grab your piece of paper and pen and pencil right now.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you when Disneyland was announced by Walt. This is from the Burbank Daily Review newspaper. I've seen a copy. You can go online and track down the archives of it. And it appeared on March 27th, 1952. And the front page headline was Walt Disney Make-Believe Land Project Planned Here. Now, in the article, you find that the venue is no longer called Mickey Mouse Park. It is called Disneyland. Disneyland was announced as being built in Burbank. And the name Disneyland came from a shortened version of Walt's Disneylandia project that he abandoned. And of course, just like Mickey Mouse Park, Disneyland was chosen so that the park would reference, the values, the qualities, and all of Disney, the Disney company. And architect John Cowles did some architectural drawings based on Harper Goff's ideas. And storyman Don DeGrady also made some sketches for the project, because one of the things that makes Disneyland so different from any other amusement venue is that it is themed to movies. So you have movie people involved in this. Now, Marvin Davis made some gradation layouts, just as he would do later for Disneyland and for Walt Disney World. So a lot of the key players in building Disneyland were building this Burbank Disneyland. Now, the article mentioned that the park would have, quote, various scenes of Americana, rides in a spaceship and a submarine, a zoo of miniature animals, and exhibit halls, unquote. and it was estimated to cost $1.5 million to build.
Wow.
Now, some of you won't go and look at the archives of the article, so here's a direct quote from that article. Designed primarily for children, Disneyland is not intended as a commercial venture. The Burbank City Board of Parks and Recreations have been assured of that. The facilities are to be instantly available, according to Walt, for youth groups, parent-teacher associations, and other organizations devoted to civic and social welfare. Imagine if that happened at Disneyland, right? Yeah, we're closing Disneyland today because the PTA wants to come. Okay. We'll go back to quoting the article here. The development, Disney said, will focus a new interest upon Burbank, Los Angeles, and Southern California through the medium of television and other exploitation. It will give meaning to the pleasure of children and pleasure to the experience of adults. A complete television center with theater, stages, sets, and technical equipment are planned. Disneyland and its activities will be transmitted throughout the country. So the Parks and Recreation Board are over the moon.
Right.
My gosh, Walt Disney, they're going to build something here. Who wouldn't want to come to that, for crying out loud? And if they come there, they'll be spending money all through Burbank, right? And so they helped Walt and his team prepare the proposal for the Burbank City Council. And they also went ahead and pressured on Disney's behalf the city of Los Angeles to approve the lease terms for Walt's proposed miniature railroad. You know, it was going to go from the through Griffith Park, from the carousel, you know, to the park. And the Burbank Parks and Rec got Los Angeles to agree to lease the land for the railroad at $1,000 per month, but they were willing to reduce that rate if Disney made some additions of new trees and landscaping along the proposed route. Holy. The Parks and Recreation Department is behind this. Los Angeles says, yes, you can build your miniature train going from the carousel to Disneyland here. Seems like, oh my gosh, this is a slam dunk. Except that Disney made the mistake that they have kept making through their entire career. They didn't go and get the community support. Walt thought that everybody who lived in Burbank would just get excited about it. They'd get as excited as he did.
Yeah, why not?
Not the case. Just as, projects like the Long Beach theme park, crashed and burned because they didn't get a community support. Mineral King crashed and burned because they didn't talk to the community first before announcing all of this stuff. This is pretty much where it all began. So, in September 1952, the Burbank City Council, at Walt's request, hold a meeting where they rejected Walt's proposal. And because as far as they were concerned, this wasn't just a miniature railroad with a few kiddie rides. This was now a full-scale amusement facility, and the meeting notes for this exist. You can go track these down, and I'm only going to give you a snippet, an excerpt of it, but this is it. Walt told the council, quote, "A word may be said in regard to the concept and conduct of Disneyland's operational tone. Although various sections will have the fun and flavor of a carnival or amusement park, there will be none of the pitches, games, wheels, sharp practices, and devices designed to milk the visitor's pocketbook. No roller coasters or other rides in the cheap thrill category. What a wonderful thing. There would be nothing at Disneyland designed to milk the visitor's pocketbook. What a wonderful dream. Never came true.
Yeah,
Never came true in Anaheim.
They kind of got over that. They kind of got over that, didn't they?
Yeah. So anyway, the council feared it would indeed. Well, and again, you know, that's to Disney's credit. You know, even when he built Disneyland in Anaheim, it's not like, yeah, this is going to be a cash cow. You know, Walt was hoping at best to make enough money just to maintain it and then to add improvements. You know, Walt didn't go into it for the money. You know, he went into let's get this done right. You know, we're not going to cut corners. You know, so anyway, the Burbank City Council feared that it would be another noisy carnival, and it would attract the wrong type of people and the wrong type of behavior. You know, and it's hard to blame them because at that time, kiddie parks, you know, like the Beverly Park there, were small. They were usually unkempt. They were crude, you know, in some cases a little dangerous. And larger amusement parks like Coney Island had been neglected during World War II, and they had become seedy spots for vagrants, pickpockets, prostitutes, drug dealers, and worse. You know, that's why the first three Coney Island parks that opened, like Steeplechase and Luna Park and all, they charged admission. It was only a dime, but they charged a dime. And the reason for that is you controlled who went into your park. You know, if you were a pickpocket and you spent a dime and you went in there and they caught you, or you were rowdy and they tossed you out, you lost the dime that you spent to get in. You know, and Walt followed that. You know, when people say, well, why are you charging, you know, admission into Disneyland, for crying out loud? You know, don't you want people to come in free so you get as many people as possible? By charging admission, Walt controlled who was going into the park, and people had made an unwritten contract with if you take a look at the back of the Disney admission tickets, basically it says Disney can toss you out. Yeah. You know, you don't behave yourself, you're out of here, buddy. You know, and so the dollar admission there, you know, did that. Well, Walt still kept pitching, you know, and explaining how it would be different than other amusement parks. You know, it would have the greenery, it would be clean. Walt had all of these illustrations done up that were presented on an easel. You know, in those days you don't have PowerPoint and any of that stuff. And he explained how it would be child-friendly and children would be protected in the park. And it would educate children about their national heritage and all that. And again, he emphasized that the point was not, you know, to make a fortune, but just to make enough money to maintain, you know, the operation and hopefully make some additions, you know. Actually, you know, to Walt, it was more important just having his dream realized than in establishing a major source of new income, which probably irritated Roy. But by this time, Roy knew how to, you know, roll his eyes and sigh. And Walt got the feeling, and he told others about this, that the council had somehow been poisoned on the whole idea, and Walt suspected that maybe even some people at his own studio had you know, poisoned the council about this. Goff, Harper Goff, who also attended the meeting, he remembered in an interview that some of the council members just seemed to sneer at them. You know, how could they, you know, dare to propose, you know, something like this? And a councilman stood up, and this was in the meeting, recorded meeting, a councilman stood up and looked directly at Walt and said, "We don't want a carny atmosphere in Burbank. We don't want people falling in the river or merry-go-rounds squawking all day long." And at that point, Walt realized there's no sense in fighting anymore. So he and Harper, packed up their presentation materials. They left the room. By that time, it was late at night. It was dark, and so Walt drove home alone. And I'm sure fumed about it. But as Hench said, you tell Walt no, he is going to, get his back up, and he's going to fight harder to make sure that this happens. And but Walt realized that without the additional 20 acres from the council, there wouldn't be enough room, and some of that land that Walt needed became part of the Ventura Freeway. Walt had spent tens of thousands of his own dollars developing the park, not the Disney studio money, his money. And by this time, Roy was convinced that Walt was pretty serious about this, but they needed more land and they needed less expensive land. And as we all know, Anaheim was not the first choice for Walt's Disneyland. It wasn't even in the top 10. Walt was looking at land that was a pistol range in Chatsworth, and he looked at a coastal spot in Palos Verdes, and a huge 440-acre plot of land in La Cañada, a parcel in Calabasas. And he even talked seriously about converting the Golden Oak Ranch, that Disney used to film movies. And Walt also looked in Riverside and San Diego counties. It wasn't until June of 1953 that Walt hired the Stanford Research Institute and Buzz Price to do two surveys. One was to find the ideal location for Disneyland, and the other was to determine the economic feasibility of building Disneyland. If we built Disneyland, would it make enough money to pay for itself? And Walt paid another $23,000 for the site study and for a 4-month feasibility study. And of course, as we know, that came back very positive, that Anaheim was where the growth was going to. The land could be purchased fairly inexpensively and all that. Walt had immediately ruled out any location near the beach since he felt it would take away as much as half his potential audience from visiting because they would romp in the Pacific Ocean for free. Remember, one of the top things that tourists wanted was dip a foot in the Pacific Ocean. And Walt also feared that dripping wet swimsuit-clad guests would then maybe stop off at Disneyland, causing maintenance issues, among other things. It's also the reason why he eliminated any beach area when he was looking for land for Walt Disney World. Now, here's a question for you that I know for a fact you two cannot answer, and I know that every single member of your Disney listening audience cannot answer. You will not be able to find it in any Disneyland book, even ones written by me. When was the original public groundbreaking ceremony for Disneyland in Anaheim? I'll tell you it's in 1954.
July 16th?
No, I will tell you there was none. It was canceled.
Oh.
Because again, Walt didn't talk to the community. And so there were two Garden Grove businessmen that, were planning this huge protest demonstration, and they couldn't afford that because Anaheim had not yet been, and that plot of land, Disneyland, had not become annexed yet. So to have access to all the necessary infrastructure from sewage to garbage collection and more, Disney had to wait until that plot of land was annexed to the city of Anaheim, and then officially, according to Disney, construction on Disneyland began July 21st, 1954, approximately 1 year before the park opened. But originally, Disneyland, and by the name of Disneyland, was going to be in Burbank, California. And that's why I wanted to talk about 1952.
Well, isn't it true that the actual company, because people might not be aware of this, but you were talking about Walt Disney spending his own money, and the company with the studios and everything back then was called Walt Disney Productions.
Right.
And
Walt Disney Studios and then Walt Disney Productions, because it
was a publicly traded
expanding.
company, right?
Mm-hmm.
Publicly traded company, and the Disneyland project was a distinct company. Didn't that company start up in December of 1952?
WDI?
WED did.
Yeah. Oh, WED. Yeah.
WED started in 52. And again, building Disneyland, we can talk about this too, but building Disneyland was not a slam dunk. A lot of the stockholders objected to money, especially in the early process, 53, 54, being channeled to this project. And claiming, we're not in the amusement park business, which sort of echoed Roy Disney back in the 30s when people were asking to license Disney characters, and they were saying, well, Disney should be controlling this. And Roy said, we're a movie studio. We're not a toy company. Later they found that they were a toy company, and thank heavens for Kay Kamen. But yes, WED was started, Walter Elias Disney, was started primarily to fund and design Disneyland. And in fact, Walt bought the rights to Zorro, not for the Disney studio, but for WED, so that the money from that would then be funneled to build Disneyland. But a lot of things were happening late 1951 through 1952, where, the push was on. We're going to build Disneyland, by golly. This is it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting if you go back there, and I think, wasn't it started as Walt Disney? He wanted to call it like Walt Disney Incorporated or something, and then Roy's like, no, we're going to get sued.
Well, actually, the company started. Yeah, he did. Which is why he had to use the initials. Well, the studio actually started as the Disney Brothers studio, just like Warner Brothers. And then, when they moved to Hyperion, Walt was the one who decided it was going to be Walt Disney Studios. And Roy didn't care one way or the other, really. And he also saw that there was an advantage of, branding it to one person, and in truth, Roy was really not involved with the creative end, and so that was fine. That was fine with him,
Right.
And speaking of Disneyland, as an exclusive. We talk about Disneyland being announced in 1952. Here is the first exclusive announcement. I have a new Disneyland book coming out this spring. It should be out in March, probably end of March. And it is dedicated to the two hosts of this program. And the title of the book is Disneyland Historical Highlights, the Walt and Roy years, 1954 to 1972.
Wow.
And in the book, each chapter covers one particular year of Disneyland. So you get ticket prices, how many people were working at the park, how much money did the park make, were there special events, were there attractions that opened, were there attractions that closed. So all of that is in there. And in fact, in each chapter, besides those facts, there are short essays on some of these things. So, and by short essays, we're talking 500 to maybe 1,000 words, so it gives more detail about things, like whether it was the Indian village or whether it was the Yippie, riot in 71 or whatever. So I hope there will be people who are interested in the book. Over the last 10 years, I was approached by 5 different authors that wanted to write a book about Disneyland year by year. And I told them I would help them if I could. And they all just burned out because they found that there were some years they wanted to talk more about than others, and one of the reasons for that is they didn't want to do the research and roll up, the sleeves and dig into newspaper articles and Disneyland documents and interviews and things like that to find out what else was going on at Disneyland. So when you say 1959, most people immediately go to, oh yes, the monorail, submarine voyage, the Matterhorn bobsled.
Right.
Yeah, but how many people realize that that summer, Annette Funicello was dressed as an Indian princess in the Indian village and was signing autographs and doing meet and greets. So, I'll bet some of you can't tell me the day that Clayton Moore, dressed as the Lone Ranger, wandered around Frontierland. So there's all those little, bits and pieces, and believe me, it was killer. Trying to research and more importantly verify, because Disney is notorious for not keeping good records, and unfortunately because of the pandemic, many of my contacts at Disney were furloughed and then laid off. So that made it tough, but it's dedicated to these 2 charming and informative hosts, because they were the ones who invited me onto Sweep Spot and to spend an hour or so talking about one particular year in Disneyland. So we will probably get to 1962, and especially since I wrote about it in the book, and 1972, because I wrote about it in the book. So I've already done the research. Although that won't stop me from trying to do more. And for those of you who are waiting, over the Christmas season, I had 2 new books come out: the Vault of Walt, Volume 10, the final edition in the series, and there are stories about the Disney theme park in the book, as well as about movies like Scarecrow of Romney Marsh and Condor Man and all that, and so all sorts of fun stuff. But as I said, it's gotten to the point where it's hard to find this material, so I thought now's the time to wrap up this series, and it'll be a finite 10 volumes. And for those of you who have any interest in Walt Disney World, I wrote the Walt Disney World 50th Anniversary Quizmaster Challenge, which is 250 questions and answers about Walt Disney World. And I made sure to put the answers at the back of the book, and I also made sure that I just didn't say, oh yes, the answer is letter A. I wrote a little paragraph about why that's the correct answer, or why the other things were the incorrect answer. And then I added a couple of additional chapters. So after you use it as a quiz book, you can use it as a reference book. And as I tell people, if that sells well, or well enough, then there might be a Disneyland Quizmaster book, in the offering. And so far, I've gotten some pretty good reviews of, yes, these are not the typical cut and paste questions that we find on websites and all that. But it is what it is, and I'm so happy to be able to be given this forum where I can promote these books, because as these books sell, it isn't a huge money-making endeavor, but oftentimes enough money comes in that I can afford to, write the next book. And so I am grateful for that, and I'm also grateful to the listeners of this podcast. I'm grateful for your passion for Disneyland, for your desire to know more, for your efforts to share this information with others, even if you're doing that to go nani. I'm sure that some of you are already planning, well, when was Disneyland first announced and where was it announced? Not in Anaheim. And, so, you can be that Disneyland expert. And I hope all of you are staying safe and sane. This is tough times for everybody. But, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. That is what Walt would have wanted. So thank you guys again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm looking to future sweep spots, and I'm looking forward to people looking forward to buying a copy of Disneyland Historical Highlights, which will be out in March. And once again, may all your Disney dreams come true.
Well, that concludes episode 327, but don't go away. We have more.
Don't go away. But wait, there's more.
Well, I always enjoy Jim coming on the show. I hope that everyone learned something. I know I did.
I've always enjoyed having him on the show. He's just a fountain of information. And I like learning new things and having other things clarified. And, really, I'll say it again, check out his books. If you want, there's a lot of, there's some books out there that are not reliable, and some of them are just fluff, not Jim's. Nope. Jim's, if you're into Disney history, get his books.
Definitely. Wanted to read a review that we received, because I said I would. If you leave a review especially on Apple, not everyone has Apple, but this is the one I use, so I just read those that we get on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. But we have a new one. It was from January 23rd, 2022, and from Nick Valdo. It's titled, it's 5 stars, and it's titled The #1 Disney Podcast. It says, I've been listening to the Sweep Spot podcast ever since I heard about it mentioned by Jeff Bam from Nostalgia podcast. I would say I started listening at episode 288. 288, wow. Most episodes include an additional former cast member, and I always enjoy the behind-the-scenes stories they share, whether it involves a celebrity, a special event, or a story that maybe helped bring the magic to a guest. I love the podcast, love what you guys are doing. Fan for life, Nick V. Wow. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you're enjoying the show. And I hope you continue to enjoy it and that you're learning things from it. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much. And again, like I said, we'd really appreciate you to leave reviews if you've been listening to the show and you enjoy it even for one episode. Please go on over and leave a review when we read it on the show, and we truly appreciate it. Don't forget to sign up for the Patreon so you don't miss out on our next live chat on our next episode in 2 weeks. And also, don't forget the books on the website if you need one. We have them there. And I want to mention real quick about the mini episodes. So the mini episodes used to come out in between the times that this main show came out, and I'm still going to continue to do those, but they're going to be more on a need-to-be basis, kind of like if I have a subject or an interview or someone I want to speak to, that's where it'll fall into. It'll be on the same feed as this podcast, but it just may not be on a regular basis. But you can count on this on the main shows to come out every other week like they always have for years now. So just wanted to put that out there just so you're aware. But they're not going away. They're just going to be kind of hit and miss. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it. Tell a friend about the show. Pass on the word. And we'll talk with you next time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.